Hey, good evening. Thank you for joining us on the Scabbard. It's game two of the Sabres season, and I'm sure most of you joining us uh, will be disappointed in game one of the Sabres season. Like I cautioned at the end of last episode, was don't get too high or don't get too low based off of the play in one game. Um, was it disappointing to watch the Sabres stink it up in at the arena? Yeah, it was. You would hope that they would have come out a little more fired up and established their game a lot earlier than they did in that game, um, and address some of the issues that changed their play in some manners to address what the Rangers were throwing at them. But all in all, we can't fault the Sabers too much. It was the first game of the season, both for both teams, and the Sabres did not. It wasn't like they stank up the joint the whole time. I think first period they really allowed like three chances and two ended up in the back of the net. Now, um, I think the Rangers did have the better of the play, and probably for the first half of the game, I think the Rangers are a much stronger team. The Sabres did, kind of figure some things out as the game went along, but as the game went along, the score line became an issue. That the time left became an issue, and the Sabres, one thing they did not figure out was how to get the puck past the block of the New York Rangers. There are a couple of issues that I saw last night or on Thursday night that definitely need to be addressed. One, puck movement to get around the block, but the stat of the night that I want to highlight for this game is that game one we lost 63.3% of the faceoffs, and you can't do that. You spend the entire game chasing. Um, Whether it's, just a offensive zone face off, or you have your back against the wall in a defensive zone face off. If you're on the power play, that first face off, if you lose the first face off, you're losing 20 seconds off your power plays. And depending on how many power plays you or how many face offs in that power play you have, you're losing, almost up to half of your power play just chasing the puck because the Rangers were able to take it back and just shoot it down the ice. So the Sabres, this was an issue last season. They were one of the worst teams in the league when it came to faceoffs. It didn't seem like it got better over the offseason, and I get that they're young forwards that are taking faceoffs. Um, but I mean, even then, Tage Thompson needs to be getting better. The only Sabre faceoff guy that was center that was semi decent was Kyle Poso. He was 3 out of 4. Um, but still, you need to be better on the faceoffs. In fact, if the Sabres are in a playoff position come the trade deadline, that is something I expect them to do, is to acquire somebody who is a face-off specialist. I mean, he may be a guy that comes on the ice, takes the face-off in a key power play, and immediately streaks to the bench to bring on a guy like Thompson or Tuck or anybody else on the first power play unit, because we just can't keep chasing the puck and chasing the game all night because we don't do well on the faceoffs. Um, but yeah, that is a definite team need moving forward. It's hard to get better in the season when it comes to faceoffs. This is something that you kind of have to work on in the off season, and I was hoping that that was something that we're going to focus on, was getting better in that faceoff dot, and they did not do that. The other thing I said was moving the puck. The game review, I'll take a look at it this way. They had trouble with the trap. The Rangers were employing a classic, almost Lou Lamoriello style trap, 1-3-1 zone, uh, with one guy in the forecheck, one guy in the back end, and then three guys stacked up right there on the blue line. And the Sabres didn't seem like they had the ability to address that. There were times where they just kind of confused as to how to proceed, and they just fire the puck down. Um, not really as a dump and chase. It was just like I don't want this puck anymore, fired it down. That's concerning. You've to beat that, you got to do dump and chase. You got to chip the puck deep. get in the corners, work hard. You got to outwork your opponent for the puck, retrieve the puck, and set up your offense. And that just didn't happen. They seem like, well, if we can't get through, if we can't carry the puck through, then what are we doing here? So it did get better, a little bit better as the game went on. Um, but yeah, there are points where they just couldn't get past the trap. The second thing was the block shots. 23 block shots, I believe, was the stat, which should have been the stat of the night as well. Co-stats of the night, I guess. 23 block shots. The thing with the block shots is one, you're telegraphing your shot. Two, you're not moving on the power play. You're not moving to take a shot. Um, Movement away from the puck to set yourself up for one timers. There just wasn't enough of that. There was passing. Just it seemed like once the puck got to the puck carrier, they stood there, and then maybe move in for a shot, but that gave the Rangers defenseman all the time in the world just to lay down. Uh, do something with your shot. If you're not gonna move, make it more difficult for 'em. Make them pay the price for laying down to block a shot. Shoot at their head. I don't know what you're doing here. If you're just firing at their legs, yeah, you might get every once in a while a puck tip off their leg and go into the net. That happens, but more often than not, these guys are professionals at this, and they're going to block the shot, and it's going to go down. And how many times last year did we see block shots go out of the zone and lead to breakaways? So, um, move on the power play, get into positions where you get an open shot. Don't just drive the lane and take a shot. Um, be quick about the shot. Don't wind up. Wrist shots. There are ways to beat the block shots. It's not just you know throwing your hands up and taking the shot and hoping it gets through. Um, they didn't shy away from the physical play, which was great. It was good to see. In fact, I thought some guys like Jordan Greenway had their best games as Sabers, at playing physically, being disruptive. I thought that they did well with that. That check by Rasmus Dahlin, which sent the Rangers forward, tumbling in the air. That was a great hit. Um, but I do think at some points, especially early in the game, they used the physical play to distract from getting into their own offensive game. So I think that really hurt uh, getting their game going. They're more concerned about throwing the body checks and responding to hits like the hit on Yoki Haru behind the net that was responded to. I thought that was great. Um, uh, but again, don't it's good to establish a physical presence, but don't do it at the expense of establishing your own offensive game. I think that was one of the things that we saw last night, um, and which led to number five did not get into their game. That was part of the problem is by the time they really got their game kind of going, it was already 3-0, and that power play where they got scored on. Um, was awful. The lack of shots, which was, apart from the block shots, but really the first 2 periods, they really didn't get a lot of shots on net. As they got closer into the end of the second period, they started getting more shots on goal, but that was as a result of the Rangers taking penalties and getting their offense and their line rotations off schedule. We were able to get more shots. But you got to get more shots earlier in the game. You can't go into a period intermission with 5 shots on goal, and that's not a recipe for success. And the Rangers experience they've made the playoffs several years in a row. They did have a little bit of down period, but they were very lucky in the fact that the one year where they had the lockout, they expanded the playoffs. The Rangers were knocked out in that first round and ended up getting Capo Caco as their first overall or second overall draft pick. And that's not. I mean, Caco's taken a while to really flourish, but he's now first line winger for the Rangers and scored a big goal against the Sabers. So he's starting to pay dividends for the Rangers. Um, But the rest of the lineup is very experienced. Jacob Truba, Mika Zibanejad, Artemi Panarin, who had a couple goals, Kreider, who had a couple goals. These guys are experienced, and their experience showed versus a team that has not been in the playoffs since the Obama administration. So, and what they need to do from this game is take that experience, take look at the effort that the Rangers made in that game and replicate that. Understand that that was, that kind of effort gets you those 2 points in the regular season. Those 2 points, as we know, can be very critical. Because tonight, let's go to tonight's game. Tonight's game, we're playing the New York Islanders. This is their home, or actually their season opener. Islanders have not played as yet. They were last year 42, 31, and 9, good for 93 points. And 93 points is 2 more points than we had last season. And they got wild card one off of that, got the right to play the Carolina Hurricanes. In the first round of the playoffs, they lost that series 4 games to two. Although that series was a lot closer than that, you know, game line would tell you. A couple of those key games went into overtime that the Carolina Hurricanes won, and Ilya Sorokin looked kind of shaky on those overtime goals. So, wondering if there's any carryover into confidence with Sorokin going into this season. Sorokin's a world class goaltender. So again, we're first 2 games of the season, both against New York teams, both against really, really good goaltenders. And Igor Shesterkin played, lights out. We only had 1 goal against him. And that was off of a, kind of deflected rebound that fell right to JJ Peterka. Um, but Ilya Sorokin, also world class Vesna conversation kind of goalie. So, um, yeah, so it's going to be a struggle. And we'll talk about the keys of the game in a moment. Let's take a look at the forward lines as reported this morning. These are subject to change, but Islanders are looking at Barzal, Horvat, and Simon Holmstrom. Making that first line. He's a young prospect for the Islanders. Um, had a handful of games last season and makes that first line. Pierre Engvall, Brock Nelson, Kyle Palmieri on that second line. Anders Lee, Jeji Pajot, and Hudson Fashing, former Sabre. Be on the lookout. For some reason, the Sabres are always allow a goal to a former Sabre. It feels that way. So Fashing is on that watch. Uh, Martin, Cizikas, and Clutterbuck are mainstays on that fourth line. That is a very tough fourth line. This is not as heavy a lineup as what the Rangers threw at us, but it is a very fast and a very tenacious, especially back. Last 2 lines will definitely challenge the Sabres, and the our first 2 lines really need to be ready for those guys. So, um, but those are the forward lines. Their defense pairings tonight are Pellick and Dobson on the first pair, Romanoff and Pulak on the second pair, and the other Sebastian Aho and Mayfield on that third pair. Starting goalie tonight will be Ilya Sorokin. It's the first game of the season, so he'll play. Hopefully, we can see the backup. That means we've scored a lot of goals. And that is Semyon Varlamov, well traveled and seasoned goaltender. In fact, I think he was a Sabre for about 5 hours at one point during the trade deadline where we picked him up and moved him immediately. So, yeah, so Semyon Varlamov and Ilya Sorokin are the goaltenders. The scratches are Gauthier, Wallstrom, and Bolduc for the Islanders. Again, this is subject to change, but that's the lines that appeared at their last practice and last morning at the morning skate. So that's what I'm expecting. It's a tough lineup. Lots of good players on the Islanders. I think they underachieved last year. Having a full season of Bo Horvat as your top line center, I think is going to be good for the Islanders. Um, if they can gel early, the wild card is Holmstrom on the wing there. I don't know a whole lot about him, but Horvat down the center should make that a line really good. Feeding Matt Barzal. Barzal's torn up the Sabres in the past. Um, but in the last season series, the Sabres were 2-1 against the Islanders. The year before they were 2-1. We won't talk about the lockout season where, or not lockout, but the COVID season where they changed the divisions. We had to play the Islanders 8 times. I think we were 2-6, and by the time that we won the two, they had ran off 6 straight wins against us. And of course, a lot of that was during that 18 game losing streak. But they dropped a lot of goals on us that season. So um, yeah, I'm expecting the Islanders to be better than what they were last season. So, um, for the Sabres, no changes. That's what we're hearing. Skinner, Thompson, Tuck, Paterka, Cousins, and Olafson, Greenway, Middlestat, and Benson, and Zemgus, Gergensen, Peyton Krebs, and Kyle Poso on the fourth line. I thought that the fourth line and the third line were probably the 2 best lines, and even though Paterka got that goal, I thought the first 2 lines did not make much of a difference in that game. Um, uh, you need your first 2 lines to be better, and, so hopefully the first loss will light their fires. Our defense pairings, Samuelson and Darlene. Darlene was a -3, in the game. That's 2 straight games where he's been, um, a crooked number minus. He was -4 in the Pittsburgh, preseason closer, and he was -3 in this, last game. He needs to turn it around. He had a nice hit. It didn't feel like he played a horrible game, but, he was out there for the, shorthanded goal. And that doesn't help. So Power and Yoki Haru are on the second pairing. Um, didn't really like the game that either one of them had. I know Yoki Haru got that tough hit in the boards early in the game, but there was like the most egregious point where they didn't seem like they knew what to do with the puck when they were facing the 1-3-1. There was a period where Power just kind of skating back there looking for something. And yeah, I get that the forward should be moving to create the chance, but Power was just. I mean, he ended up just slapping it down the ice, and the Rangers just uh, taking it back. Very harmless play. So, and then Johnson and Clifton. I didn't mind their game. They looked a little better on the penalty kill. Johnson did seem to have a little bit more luck getting the puck deep. um, so, you know, game two, hopefully improvements all around for our defensive pairings. And we'll have Devin Levi in the net tonight. Since they said there's no changes, it looks like Eric Comrie will be the backup. He was backup for game one. So yeah, Devin Levi, Eric Comrie right now seem to be the one and A and B goaltenders for the Sabres. I expect that to change. We'll probably see Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen. We get 3 games this week. In fact, these Islanders are coming to Buffalo next weekend on Saturday, so a week between 2 games. Um, so I'm expecting Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen probably get a game here, or at least be back up for a couple games here as we go into next week. Um, Unless Eric Comrie and Devin Levi show that they can do it, but I think it's still early in the season that you're not going to just turn everything over. Um, Especially if we're not winning. So, um, our scratches again will be Joe Sprice and Matt Savoy. Good news about Matt Savoy is that he is skating with the team. I think the Sabres are waiting on a ruling as to whether he can go to Rochester for a conditioning stint. That is generally available to players who are on the roster, even if they are younger than uh, as a former Canadian Hockey League player. If they're younger than 19, they can go for a conditioning stint after an injury. The problem is that Savoy has never played for the Sabres, so I think the NHL has to rule whether he can go to Rochester or not for a conditioning stint. I think they'll let him do it if the Sabres are going to commit to bringing him up after the conditioning stint. But good news. Young guy has played really well, no matter uh, along with Zach Benson. It'll be interesting to bring him up and see if they stick them together on a line and try and create some Winnipeg magic in Buffalo. as both guys piled up the points in Winnipeg. Um, but yeah, I'm optimistic to see Savoy come back and at least get the 9 game stint. Let's do our player profile tonight. We got 10 minutes left in the show. Our player profile. We last week we or last show we did our youngest and least seasoned player on the roster. This week we're doing the oldest or at least most tenured player on the roster. I was actually shocked to learn how young Zemgus is because it feels like he's been playing forever. Uh, Zemgus Jurgensen is the longest tenured Buffalo Sabre. This is his 10th season in Buffalo, original draft pick of the Buffalo Sabres, 14th overall in 2012. And he can play center. He's more of a left wing for that fourth line. Um, uh, One time NHL All Star. Those of you remember that there was a concerted effort not only by Buffalo fans to get him into the All Star game, but basically the entire nation of Latvia voted en masse during the All Star vote and got Zemgus as All Star starter in that 2014-2015 season, or maybe it was 2015-2016. It was a 2015 All Star game. So I think it was 14, 2015 season. And, eh, you know, was he a deserved all-star? I mean, when you think about the panoply of players that are in the NHL, not really, but again, the all-star game is a fan thing, and you want to invest in the fans. That the fans are willing to get a player and say that they want this player in there. Like I didn't have a problem with him. I didn't have a problem with John Scott becoming an All Star. I thought John Scott was awesome in the All Star game, and Zemgus didn't look out of place in the All Star game either. Again, it's an All Star game; it doesn't count for anything. Um, but yeah, Zemgus, 10 years. He's only 29 years old because he started like a 19-year-old player. He forewent college. He was supposed to go to the University of Vermont, signed a pro contract, made the club. Well, did a year in Rochester, made the club as a 19-year-old, and not the most scoring player. I mean, he's only had a couple seasons. Those were his first two. They cracked 20 points, but he has been a very effective fourth line guy. Brings the effort. Like the even during the horrid years, um, this was a guy I didn't like. Oh well, he's just loafing in the ice. I never thought that about Zemgus Girgensons. He is an effort guy. I'm glad they've kept him on. Glad they kept him on this season. Yeah, can we put four All Star lines with all the prospects we have? I'm sure we could, but you need a guy like Zemgus Girgensons on that fourth line because like I said, the first game, I thought that they did well. I think they were one of the better lines, and it's because that consistency in their game between Krebs, Okposo, and Gergensen. There's real chemistry there to be that energy line, that will forecheck and make it tough for teams. And we're going to need that tonight when we play the Islanders because really the keys to the Islander game. And let me get back to the screen because I've been looking at stuff. So the three keys to the game tonight. First off, patience. The Islanders are a defensive team. Still carrying that Barry Trotz system. Lane Lambert is the replacement coach, or the coach of the Islanders now is a disciple of Barry Trotz. Plays the same style. So patience against a team like this. Don't get frustrated if you see they're blocking shots like the Rangers were, you got to adjust your style. You got to move your feet and get into shooting lanes and stuff like that. But don't do dumb things. Don't take chances. Don't if you're in the first period, don't pinch on the wall and hope to get the puck. Play it a little bit safe. You got to establish the offense far earlier than they did in the game one. You got to establish your identity earlier in game one than game one. And then you've got to wear them down in the corners. The dump and chase, if they're going to pull the same trap that the Rangers did, um, you've got to dump and then you got to just wear them down in the corners and make them not want to play the trap because that one guy on the back end is just getting worked in the corners because our guys are down there so fast on them. Got to use our speed, and got to use tenacity to win those puck battles. But that's pretty much it. Again, even if the Sabres lose tonight, it's their first road game of the season. They played much better on the road last year than they did on at home, especially in that blue and gold. I don't know what it is, and that's why I'm wearing the red and black tonight. Got my Tage Thompson goat on. Um, I don't know what it is, but last season when they wore the blue and gold, they were awful on the ice, and they were awful on the ice, and but when they wore the black and red, they were awesome, like scoring 6 goals, 5 goals a game. It won all but one game. There was that one stinker that they had against the Philadelphia Flyers last season, but the rest of the time they won more in the black and red. Um, I don't know what it is. There's got to be something psychological there because even Rasmus Dahlin talked about how they played with them a little more attitude when they're wearing that black and red. How do you translate that to the blue and gold? Because I don't foresee them going to black and red full time. But I mean, if the results are the same this year, where they're stinking it up with the blue and gold at home, and running the table with the black and red, that's 2 seasons where we're seeing results, and it's stupid, but maybe it's attitude related. It's kind of like the whole the Raiders black and silver uniforms, and the attitude that those engendered. I don't know. But they played well on the road. Wearing blue and gold all the time. The road whites and or road blues. No, road whites. Sorry, forgetting my sports. But yeah, they played well on the road last year. If they played as well on the road or at home as they did on the road, they would have been in the playoffs easily. Um, so for tonight, watch the game. Hopefully, they've improved in some things. I don't know that the faceoffs can improve all that much. I think that's something that's going to have to be addressed through trades, or picking up. Is there a free agent out there? I mean, I'm not saying that Patrick Kane would be the answer. I'm kind of in the camp of no, I really don't want Patrick Kane. Our issues are not on the wings; it's at center. As far as faceoffs go, um, I don't think Patrick Kane would add to that. So, um, but are they able to move the puck? Are they able to get past the 1-3-1 trap? Are they able to create shooting lanes, get the puck into the net, or at least at the goaltender to create rebound opportunities and things like that? Um, because if we go 2 games where they're doing the same thing over and over again, this could be a long streak to start the season. We got Tampa coming up, and yeah, I know we're playing Jonas Johansson, uh, against Tampa, and we played Tampa pretty well last couple seasons. Um, but the Sabers really need to start correcting some of the issues to make sure that they uh, don't stretch a 1 or 2 game losing cycle to an 8 game one like they had in November last year and March of last year. So anyway, we're just about out of time. The Sabres game night is starting on MSG, so go watch that. Have a great night watching hockey. It's a full slate of games. In fact, I'll tell you that at 7 o'clock we've got a ton of games starting. Um, we've already had 1 game completed in the books. That actually 2 games. I'm sorry. The Winnipeg Jets have defeated the Florida Panthers, who are 0-2 this season, 6-4. That's good news for the Sabres. Although the Ottawa Senators did get their first win of the seasons, 5-2 against the Flyers. Early games tonight, all starting here in a moment. You've got the Predators in Boston. You've got the Wild in Toronto. The Blackhawks go to Montreal, and the Lightning are in Detroit. Um, so that's the Atlantic Division games tonight. Um, so check those out. Again, those will be early games. The Toronto is going to be the hockey night in Canada. Big game. I'm sure you'll be able to catch the Montreal Canadiens, or you're close to there as well. But the big game for Hockey Night in Canada tonight is the I'm sorry, the Toronto Maple Leafs versus the Minnesota Wild. Late game will be the Canucks Oilers game. So good night hockey. Check it out. Go watch Sabres game night. And we will talk to everyone on Tuesday night when we take on the Tampa Bay Lightnings. Have a good one, everybody.